In 1992, Pilot released 3 fountain pens to commemorate the 74th anniversary of their founding. At the top, we have the Pilot Custom 74. In the middle, we have the Custom 742. And at the bottom, we have the Custom 743. The Custom 74 has become one of the most popular pens in Pilot's lineup, and it's now available in a variety of colors that are both opaque and translucent. The 742, on the other hand, is only available in a handful of dark opaque colors. And the 743's offering is similar to the 742. However, Pilot recently released the Verdigris version, which is exclusive to the United States, and it's a bright green that's similar to the color of the Statue of Liberty. All 3 pens have rounded finials that become more conical as you go down towards the 743. They then have a thin metal band that again gets thicker as you get towards the 743, and that metal band separates the finial from the pen cap. All 3 have the same triangular Pilot clip that ends in a spherical ball. Working our way down the cap, we then have a thin band followed by a thicker gold band. And again, the thickness of those bands get thicker as you go down towards the 743. The Custom 74's band reads Custom 74. It has a gold star followed by Pilot Made in Japan. The 742 reads Custom 742, 2 gold stars, Pilot Made in Japan. And the 743 has text that's been colored black, and it reads Custom 743, 3 gold stars, Pilot Made in Japan. All 3 pens then have a little bit of exposed plastic followed by a step down to the barrel. The Custom 74's cap comes off in 2 full rotations. The 742's cap comes off in 1.5 turns. And the 743's cap comes off in 1, and again, 1.5 turns. Now my Custom 74 is from the late 1990s, so it's possible that Pilot recently updated the threads on all 3 models so that they uncap in 1.5 turns. However, I can't confirm that. Let's take a closer look at these nibs. All 3 nibs have scroll work on the outside, followed by similar text. Pilot 14K585, denoting a 58.5% gold content. The nib size, the Pilot Custom 74 has a 5 size nib. This is not a standard 5, this is a Pilot size 5. The 742 has a number 10, and the 743 has a number 15. And then we have the tipping size. Here we have a soft medium, C for coarse, and then another soft medium. And then at the bottom, we have the date codes. In following with the similar theme to the trim, as we move from the 7.4 to the 7.43, the nib size does get larger. All 3 sections are very similar in size and dimensions. However, they are again thicker as you go down to the 7.43. And unfortunately, this means none of these sections or these nibs are swappable between these 3 models. All 3 then have a similar gold band, followed by threads that are smooth to the touch, and then a barrel. Looking at the bottom of the pen, we then have a thin gold band that again gets thicker as you move towards the 7.43, and then finials that match the top finial. Let's take a look at these pens posted. All 3 caps post deeply and securely, and in following with the same theme, the overall pen length gets longer as you go towards the 7.43. In terms of size comparisons, here we have the Pilot Custom 74, the Custom 742, and the Custom 743, along with a Pilot G2 rollerball pen, and your standard Sharpie. All 3 pens disassemble in a similar way, so for the sake of time, I'm only going to disassemble one. And that will be the custom 742. The cap unscrews, and unfortunately, there is no easy way to disassemble this cap further, but if we look with some LED lighting, we can see there isn't a cap liner, just a step up for sealing, which means it's easy to clean this pen. You only need to put the cap under running water. The section unscrews from the barrel. And there we can see the Con 70 converter that was included in the unboxing, along with some black cartridges. That was nice to see, especially for a pen of this cost. And unfortunately, the Con 70 does not disassemble very easily, but for the sake of reference, I'll link a video for the inner workings of this. Then we have the nib and feed in the section. Those pull right out. And the nib and feed can be separated from there. At this point, we have the pen fully disassembled. To reassemble, we'll start with the nib and feed. If we look closely, the nib has two flats that rest onto this feed in these two areas. Then we'll take the section and put that assembly into it. Followed by the Con 70, the barrel, which screws in place, and the cap. And we're ready to ink up. Inking up the custom 742, today I've selected Iroshizuku Asagao. It's a nice deep blue that Pilot makes. Cap unscrews. And the section unscrews from the barrel. Submerge the nib into the ink and start pressing the button to draw up ink. Wipe off the excess ink. Put the barrel back on, followed by the cap. And we're ready to write. Okay, writing with the Pilot Custom 74 series. I'm going to start with the classic 74. Cap unscrews. In the hand, the pen is a little bit heavy, but very well balanced. My fingers tend to rest right on the threads, which are smooth and do not bother me. The cap does post deeply and securely, but it does feel like it backweights the pen just a little bit. So I tend to write with it unposted. And our nib is a 14 karat gold soft medium. It is an extremely well-tuned nib, very smooth with just a hint of feedback, and that softness in it really gives you some bounce that adds character to your writing. Our ink is Iroshizuku Asagao. For flex, let me turn it so you can see a little closer. You can get a pretty nice line variation with this pen, especially because it is a soft medium. For reverse writing, very scratchy. The feed kept up pretty well, but it is not an enjoyable experience by any means. If you want line variation, go light or go heavy. Now let's try another one. Going up in the line, this is the custom 742. Again, in the hand, the pen does have some heft. It's pretty comparable in weight to the 74, but it's a little bit longer, and I find that my fingers rest closer to the section. My thumb tends to still be a little bit on the threads. The cap does post deeply and securely, and it feels pretty well balanced. So I think you can definitely write with this posted or unposted. This nib is the most different of the bunch. It's much more broad. Pilot calls it a course with the letter C. I would say it's pretty similar to a double, maybe even a triple B. And because it's so thick, it feels like glass. It's an extremely smooth writer. It's kind of similar to writing with a Sharpie. Very nice writing experience. Our ink is the same. It's an S. For flex, I'll turn the page again. You really don't get any. And for reverse writing, it's actually a pretty smooth reverse writer, and it does give you a much thinner line, although the feed did not quite keep up towards the end of it, so take that as it will. I think it is still a very good reverse writer. And going up to the top of the line, Custom 743. In the hand, again, the pen is a little bit longer than the 742, still has a very similar weight, and because of the length, I actually find that my fingers tend to rest right on the section, which is a nice change from the other two. Another reason that my fingers might rest on the section is because of the size of the nib. That gives you a certain distance from the paper that you're going to try and maintain regardless of what pen you have. The cap posts deeply and securely, and the pen feels weighted for sure from the cap, but also still well balanced. So I think you could certainly write with this posted. The nib is another soft medium. And it writes similarly to the 74, but it does have a bit more feedback. And I feel like the 74 has some extra bounce to it. The 74 was made in 1998, and this one was produced in 2021. So I don't know if maybe some of that extra bounce comes over time, but that's something that we'll see over time. And our ink is the same. Roshizuku, Asagao. For flex, try and do one more. This one does not quite have as much flex as the 74, and I find if I push it, it's very easy to railroad, like you can see right there. So maybe, again, something that will improve over time, or maybe this is just a little bit more of a limited feed because of the size of the nib. For reverse writing, it's smoother than the Custom 74, but it's still pretty dry and scratchy. You do get a thinner line, so in a pinch you could reverse write, but I would recommend for line variation going light or going heavy. Again, a little bit of railroading there. So what do I think of the Pilot Custom 74 lineup? I think the design is classic. It's going to age extremely well. It looks like something that could have been produced today or could have been produced in the 1930s. And that's really cool. Is it the most exciting design in the world? No. I would say it's fairly boring, and it's something that's very much appropriate for an office setting. But it is nice to see that Pilot is branching out in colors, especially with the 74 and most recently with the 743 in that bright green color. Haven't seen too much from the 742. Perhaps that will come in the future. I would like to see all three models in more translucent colors. I think that would be a nice feature to see. In terms of the overall design, there isn't much that I could see to improve. I would say most of it probably relies around the section design. Specifically, it would be nice if this material was also a resin, so you could potentially eyedropper the entire barrel. And also, I'd like to see an O-ring at the top of the threads. And that's because without the O-ring, it's very easy for these barrels to get unscrewed. So that's something maybe to consider. In terms of personal preference and what someone should consider, should they get a 74, 742, or a 743? Obviously, budget is a big question mark there. But also, I would say the size of your hands. If you have a smaller hands, the 74 might suit you best. If you have large hands, I would recommend going towards a 743. The 742, again, is a happy medium between the two, but also you're kind of limited in your color selections. The nice thing is all three of these are offered in a huge variety of nib types, so if there's one specific type that you want, you don't have to choose between these. And besides that, I think they are all excellent writers and a great addition to any collection. So that just leaves me to say, thank you for watching.